Welcome back to another episode of me and my money tree. Today we're talking about how I manifested my husband. This is gonna be good. Okay, so this is a topic that I actually have been wanting to share because I intentionally manifested my husband. And I haven't really shared this anywhere before, but I figured since it's just, you and me, I figured I could share this with you. So I want to kind of take you through the process of what I did in order to manifest my husband. I was first introduced to the law of attraction by a friend of mine who had the book, The Secret. And at first it seemed a little bit kind of weird to me that you could just think about what you wanted and then it would come to you. And I didn't really think that much of it, obviously. But then things in her life started really taking off. She decided that she wanted to be a model. She started getting modeling gigs. She decided that she wanted to move to another state. She moved to another state. She wasn't really sure how things were going to work out, but she knew that that's what she wanted to do. And she started manifesting lots of things into her life. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll give this a shot. The thing that I really wanted, and I had always wanted, was a long-term relationship with a really, really good man. And because I was, and still am, very picky, I didn't want just anybody, right? So I could have dated, anyone. There were lots of people who were coming into my life who, could have potentially been a boyfriend or someone who I said, okay, I'll just settle for you. But I really wanted a very, very specific type of person. And so I decided to use law of attraction in order to manifest my husband. So here's what I did. The first thing that I did was I admitted that I actually wanted a husband. I admitted that even though I was a strong Black woman, I didn't want to be a single strong Black woman. I essentially got to the point where I said, well, if this is something that's for me and it's something that's going to happen for me, then first of all, I need to be intentional about it. I need to admit and say, I don't want to be single, right? And this was hard for me because I had like this wall up and I had this barrier where anyone that I dated or anyone that I kind of came across, like I had this face where I was just like, well, I don't need you, right? And for me, that was kind of tough for me to actually admit, like, yeah, I kind of do need a man. I kind of do want a man. And the breaking point for me was I was living on my own. I had my own apartment, right? Independent, single woman. And I was bringing in a bookcase from IKEA. And I remember it being just so heavy. And I started crying because I thought, well, I shouldn't have to carry this thing in by myself. Like, I should have a man here to be carrying this thing. And eventually it was a lot more than just the bookcase, right? There's always just that one thing that kind of is the breaking point, but that was the breaking point for me. So I eventually, with the bookcase, I ended up just opening the box and like pulling things out individually. So I made it work. But that was the moment where I decided, okay, well, this is what I actually want. So the first thing I did was I set that intention and I put that intention out there and I admitted that this was what I wanted, right? And I think a big part of that, of why that worked so well, is because there was a lot of energy attached to the I don't need a man statement, right? So me saying I don't need anybody, that I can do this on my own, I'm independent, like I don't care, like if he comes, if he doesn't come, whatever. I think that there was an energy attached to that statement of, well, if you don't need a man, then okay, you won't have one, right? So you get what you ask for and what you seek, you'll find. And that's essentially what I had to do. I had to release that energy. So the next thing I did was I opened my heart and I started dating and I essentially fully put myself out there. I have always been the type of person where I try to like hold back or I try to prevent myself from getting in my feelings, getting like too close to someone. But in this case, I was like, well, if this is gonna work, I can't look at every single guy and think, is he my husband or is he not? And like try to evaluate. Like I really just started going with the flow. I just started dating. I started enjoying myself. And I really kind of put forward the attention that I would have been doing if I knew that that person was my husband, right? So I just, basically said, if it's not you, it's going to be the next person, and you're going to show me, right? I'm saying that to the guy, like in my head, like, you're going to show me if you're the one. And if you're not the one, then that's fine. Like, I'll just move on. So I didn't have any like sort of desperation energy or any sort of energy of like, well, I need to make this work, or even asking them, are you the type of person that does this, or do you do this, or do you want kids? Or like, I stopped asking all those desperate type of questions, and I just kind of went with the flow. I was like, well, you're going to show me if you're the right one for me. And so that allowed me to bring a completely different type of energy to all the dating that I was doing. It was much more fun. It was much more flirtatious. It honestly, I feel like it made me a lot more attractive. And even while doing that, I was able to quickly determine who was there and wanting to win my heart over. Just because I kind of gave it my all, I still didn't like fully give my heart, right? Like, I made them essentially work for it, right? I made them work for my heart. I made them work for that attention. Like, I would give a little bit, and then I would look for what was reciprocated. And if there wasn't a whole lot reciprocated, then I was like, okay, well, you're showing me that you're not interested. That's kind of how I went through the process of trying to figure out if this person, was the right person. And it really came down to, what I saw in them and what kind of response I was getting back from them. And then the final thing that I did after setting my intention and after really giving my attention to it is I actually wrote down a list of requirements. Now, I want to share this with you because I think it's really, really important. Also, the date that I wrote it down, as well as the date when I finally met my husband. And then I'll share our story of how we actually met and how everything came together, because I really like the story. I really enjoyed living it. I'll love reliving it here with you. So I'd love to share that with you. So let me read you the requirements, right? The requirements that I wrote down for the man of my dreams. So I'm just gonna pull it up on my phone. I have it in my notes. I never deleted it, and I go back to it often because it makes me really excited to read it and know that I wrote it down and then he came along, right? So this was January 23rd of 2011, and I finally met my husband in October of 2013. So it was basically 2 years and 10 months later. Now, I don't think that there's a specific time frame that these things can and will or will not happen. But for me, it was almost 3 years after writing this intention statement down that everything actually came into fruition for me. So here's what I wrote. So the last time I described my dream guy, he actually appeared, and I had a great 2-year relationship with him. Now that I've learned what to do and what not to do, I think I should refine my description. So here's what I included. Tall, must love Jesus with all his heart. Great smile, makes me laugh. Nice to others. Smart, ambitious, potential or there already. Loves his mom. Likes to be outdoors and work out. Likes to cook, or at least can put something together. Settled, mature, steady, good at balancing out my energy and stamina. Giving, generous, loves kids. Now that my list is complete, where would this type of guy be hanging out? And that's the $1 million question. I wrote that down in January of 2011, and it's funny because the last edit on this is actually August of 2013, which is 2 months before I met my husband. And I don't even know what I was doing at that time. I wonder if I was coming back to it to read it again because I got to the point where I was a little frustrated, or I think I actually might have been dating a guy at that point and I was trying to figure out if he actually met the requirement. So here's the story of how my husband and I actually got together. So I'd love to share this with you. We met at a conference for personal finance nerds called FinCon, is where money and media meet. And at the time, I was actually dating someone else, and we met in St. Louis. And when I was going to St. Louis, I was actually going to St. Louis to talk to the guy that I was dating at the time. And things didn't work out with me and that guy. Actually, that's like a long story that is not really necessary for me to recount, but he wasn't the right one. And I remember coming back to the conference so disappointed, and I was actually crying because of what had happened that same night. And I remember not wanting to do anything else at the conference, not wanting to participate. It was the closing party. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to hang out in my hotel room and like get under the covers and basically be disappointed that that the next guy that I was dating once again wasn't the one. And I remember that moment telling myself, like, if you don't go to the closing party, then you'll be disappointed. And not only that, but you will forever remember this conference as the conference where you got dumped, right? As the conference where you broke up with the guy, as the conference where you were disappointed and crying in your bed. And I never wanted to remember that conference like that. And I said, you don't want to regret this moment. So get dressed, put your makeup on, and go have a good time and go chat with all of your friends. Like you have friends at the conference, like just go hang out. I did that. I got dressed. I put on a really nice dress. I put on my heels, everything that I had promised myself that I was going to wear that night for the closing party. I came downstairs out of the elevators, and the way the hotel was set up, there were 2 elevator banks. So I came out on this side, and then my husband at the time friend, came out from the other side. And we had been hanging out during the conference. Like we went to a couple of meetups and things like that. So we had already been chatting during the conference. It wasn't like this brand new, like here you are, right? So I came out of my side of the elevators. He happened to be coming out of his side of the elevator at the exact same time. And he looked at me and he said, wow, he said, you look really beautiful. He said, you look too beautiful to be walking by yourself. Can I escort you? And he gave me his arm, and I wrapped my hand around his arm. And at that moment, I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. This is the treatment that I've been looking for. And I said, if I have a choice, like, I will never let this arm go, ever. And so we walked to dinner, because that was the closing party. We were having dinner first and then going to the closing party. So we walked to dinner and we sat beside each other at dinner, and we had a chance to kind of chat a little bit more. And honestly, like, I wasn't in the frame of mind of I'm looking for someone else. Like, I still was a little hurt from what had happened earlier. So we were just chatting. I was like, it's my friends. I'm talking with all of my friends. And I remember one of my friends at the conference had caught my eye during dinner, and she pointed to us and she was like, you guys. And I looked at her and I was like, no. And I really didn't think anything of it. So after the conference ended, we went to the closing party, and I was like, okay, I did my duty. Like, I hung out with my friends, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to just put this city behind me. After the closing party, we got back to the hotel or whatnot, and it was time to pack up and go to the airport. And I remember that I went to the airport early because I didn't want to hang out in the hotel lobby with like everybody else who was at the conference and like chat about like how fun the conference was, because I still was just a little bit bummed, right? And so I went to the airport early. I was there like 3 hours early, I think. And at that time, Romeo, my husband, Romeo texted me and he said, hey, I don't think we got a chance to get a picture together. Are you still here? And I said, yeah. I was like, well, I'm in the airport. And he was like, oh, I'm in the airport too. I was like, oh, okay. He was like, when does your flight leave? And I said, well, it doesn't leave for a couple of hours. I got here really early. And so he said, well, do you want to be my guest in the airport lounge? And he said, I've got an extra ticket or whatever. I was like, sure, no problem. He was like, we have food. I was like, okay. So I went and hung out with him in the airport lounge, and we had a chance to chat a little bit more, and actually got a little bit more in depth on the subject of like relationships and like relationships between men and women. And I remember thinking like, wow, he's going to be a really good friend, and he probably will be able to help me like as I continue dating and like looking for the one, right? And so I really didn't think anything of like a long-term anything with him. I just thought, we're going to be friends. And at that point, I was still thinking like, my guy is coming along, but right now I just need to be by myself. I need to rest, relax, get over this last thing, and just do me. And you know how after a relationship, you're like, well, I'm just going to do me, right? So that's kind of where I was. And I remember after we, flew out to our respective cities, he said, well, let me know once you get back, like once you guys touch down, and I'll let you know the same. So I was like, okay, no problem. And he said, keep in touch. And everybody says keep in touch, especially after a conference. They're like, yeah, keep in touch. So I was just like, okay. I texted him after I touched down in Atlanta. I was like, hey, I made it back to Atlanta, and his flight had returned around about the same time. He was like, okay, I just touched down in Charlotte. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, I'll talk to you soon. Long story short, because this is getting a little long, long story short, I started reading his personal finance blog, which was a lot about money, but it was also about personal relationships that people have with money and all of that. And I remember there was an article on there that I read, and I was like, oh, I have to talk to him about this. And I sent him a text message. And then he said, well, I don't really text. Let's just get on the phone. So I said, okay, fine. That was the first day we started talking on the phone. And then every single day since then, for the rest of the year, we talked on the phone every single day. We FaceTimed. After a while, we started FaceTiming, and we FaceTimed every single day. Like, we never ran out of stuff to talk about. We were always constantly like chatting and laughing. And I remember thinking like, wow, like I really like him. And so by November, towards the middle of November, he had some time off of work, and he said, well, I'll come out to Atlanta to see you. I was like, okay, cool. So he came out to Atlanta, and this is the moment that I knew that he was the one, and like nothing was going to stop me from locking him down. Okay. We went to a chili festival with a couple of friends, and I remember we were like chatting in like the whole group or whatnot. But I wasn't really talking. I was kind of doing my introvert thing and just kind of standing to the side and listening to people and like letting them talk. But like my mind was kind of like somewhere else. And I remember he like kind of took my arm and like pulled me to the side, and we just started chatting, just he and I. And the rest of the world just faded away. And I was just staring, like I was like melting, staring in his eyes. And I remember thinking, like, this is it. No one else, I've always been distracted with like other things. Like no one else has been able to capture my attention the way that he did. And once I did that, I was like, this is it. Like, I'm going to marry you, period. I don't care if you know it yet, but I'm going to marry you. And long story short, we continued to chat. We continued to get to know each other. And by March of 2015, we were married and celebrating our union together. So that is a little bit longer of a video than I normally do, but I also wanted to share the story of how we actually met. So I really hope that you enjoyed this. If you have any questions about manifestation, law of attraction, it's something that I truly believe in, and I really feel that I can create my life. It's the reason that I started creating coins. I believe that you can create money for yourself, you can create wealth, but you can also do this in other areas of your life, right? I believe manifesting and law of attraction is about setting the intention and then following your soul guidance on the actual actions to take. So I don't think that it's just sitting in a room and thinking and saying, this is what I want. But I think it's after you set your intention, now you've got to listen and take the actions that you're meant to take. So I'd love to chat more about this if you're into all the woo. Thank you so much for joining me again for another episode of me and my money tree. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to love this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.